Welcome to today's No-Land developer call for August 23rd. It's the 12th developer call we have. I've shared the agenda with you guys. And let's maybe kick it off with our usual no contributor updates. I think we have Norman from Territory.
Yep.
Do you want to give us a quick update on what's going on with Territory? And then I also added to the agenda your, I think it's your issue 1061, adding the DAO common packages.
This pull request was meant to be open in Territory repo, not managed on GNO. So I closed it right after.
Okay.
Because by default, GitHub proposed the GNO repo, and I think me and another Territory collaborator get every time we forget to check that it's against our repo, so we open the stupid pairs, and I'm sorry for that about that.
You guys are so active in no repo that it suggests that as the first thing.
Yeah.
But if you you give a quick update on the moderation DAO and Territory side, if that's okay.
Sure. Yo, are you here? Do you want to do the? Maybe I can do a quick demo if you want, or you can do it, or just a status update.
Whatever you guys prefer. Short demos are always nice. Status updates are always good.
Yo, do you want to do a demo? Are you here?
I don't think he's here. So status update.
I'll do, but I can do a quick demo.
Okay.
Just wait for a second. This should be okay. Yep. Can you see?
Yep. I can see.
So I'm not in the moderation DAO. I forgot about that. So just quick status update. We added flagging, so you can either hide the content for just yourself, which is recorded on chain, so it's available whenever your wallet's connected, or flag content. And that's the only part of the demo I can do, since I'm not in the moderation DAO with this account. But when you are in the moderation DAO, there's a moderation tab. You can see the most flagged post. You can then vote to ban or unban, and when the quorum or threshold is reached, you can execute a proposal to remove the content. And that's it. Sorry for the bulk demo.
It wouldn't be a demo without some kind of issue.
Yeah, but I should have been in the moderation DAO. But so actually, you have the whole flow of flagging a post. When you're in the moderation DAO, you can see the most flagged post, votes to delete or not delete them, and then once enough delete votes are in, you can remove the post from the public feed. Since it's a blockchain, of course, you can find the post in the chain, but it's banned from public UIs that respect the moderation DAO. Another thing I did, maybe I can do another quick demo. Is a tool we need because we have a big packaging ecosystem. For example, for the DAO, since it's a modular DAO, there's multiple modules, the core DAO and stuff like that. For the social feed also, there's multiple modules. And so to deploy manually, since we iterate on the contracts and deploy them to our persistent testnet, we need to version them. So for now, there's no, I think, no mechanism for that. So we just append underscore v something. If you do that manually, we have to like think about all versions that need to be modified, deploy them in the correct order. It's time consuming and error prone, and often like you forgot like one line to you have a little fix to do at the end, so you have to redeploy 15 packages because they're all dependent on each other. And so I made a tool which can be maybe useful to other people. Let me find my shell. The message. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
So, for example, let's say I edited the core DAO interfaces. So there it's the Gnolon, PDMO, DAO interfaces, which are used by a lot of other packages. I edited that, and I want to redeploy the whole ecosystem. I just have this command, which takes target packages and the wallet I want to use to deploy. It's called Unblock because I found this in the Unblock tutorial. It's the tester wallet. And there's other flags to specify the chain you want to upload to, but for Territory is just that simple. And if I were to do it by hand, to make sure everything is in sync, I would have to upgrade 33 packages. So some there are maybe not needed. For example, AVL is the default AVL, so it wouldn't need to be modified. But this is a bit broad to make sure everything is okay. But I could do optimizations, and there it uses expect-kind library to input passwords and use the key to deploy everything. So in the repo, you keep the packages unversioned, and then the tool finds the latest version on the target testnet and redeploys everything to latest to the next version. And so at the end, you have your whole ecosystem deployed and in sync, and it's quite quick. I won't do it to the end, but and I think that's all for us. Yep.
Yeah.
What is the relation to this work to the issue where they're trying to decide about how to do versioning for realms and propagating the persistent state?
It doesn't take it into account. It's a workaround until we have the real versioning.
Okay, thanks.
That's because we need to iterate, like we already did public demo of the first version of the social feed, for example. There we had the new version, so we need to redeploy packages on our testnet, and we need versioning for that. But that's just a workaround. There's no state. If we were to do migration in the system, we would probably do data dumps and reinitialize from these dumps in the contracts, so we don't keep imports to previous versions, so everything is unversioned.
Right.
So this is also useful for tests. Like if we were to keep multiple, rename directories and stuff, like the tests would break. We would have to ensure versioning. It's a lot more simpler for us with this tool, and keep everything inversion in the mono repo.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Norman. On Block, do you want to give us an update, Andrew or Donghwan?
Yeah, sure. Mind if I share my screen?
Never.
All right. All right. Can you guys see my screen? Oh, I think it's loading. There we go.
Got it.
All right. Let me pull up the agenda. Oops, sorry. Okay. I'll post a link in chat so you guys can follow along. I'm sorry. All right. Let's get started. So starting with NoSwap, we released the first documentation for NoSwap basically. So this is somewhat like a white paper. So it basically covers what you should expect from NoSwap, and basically just everything. Basically the rationale behind our design choices, how things work in NoSwap, and even some information about our tokenomics. And you can find a preview of our UI here and there. So yeah, check it out if you're interested. And moving on, we released a couple of blogs to basically share a research about how the DeFi landscape has evolved to match the demands of our the users. So take a look if you're interested. And moving on to the development side, we released the version 0.1.4 for NoSwap interface, which you can find here. And the major components were the dashboard page and the responsive UI for providing users with a nice experience regardless of which device they're accessing NoSwap on. And we've decided to make the development server public so you can track or check out what we have developed so far. As you can see, the main page is pretty much completed. So is the swap page, the ARM page, the wallet page, and the dashboard that we just mentioned. And some pages are still a work in progress, but yeah, you can check it out if you're interested. And in our private repo, we've developed the governance realm for NoSwap specifically and the backend API. Moving on to NoScan, we released version 0.35. And for context, Memphis suggested that some realms are worth showing the address and the balance, such as the faucet, which you can find here. So we've added the realm address and the realm balance in the realm details page. And also you can now search a realm using its address, just like that. And once you click on the address, it just directs you to the realm details page. And I also want to give a shout out to Manfred for raising an issue on this. And feedbacks like this from the community are really helpful. So give us more. And that's pretty much it for what we've done for the last couple of weeks. And here are some to-dos and some supports that we need. So check these out if anyone's interested. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. It looked like one of them, but I think Albert is on vacation. It looked like one of his issues is part of your support.
All right.
Okay, so thanks, Andrew. Shall we move on to Birdie and the No Mobile? I think, Jeff, you also added some agenda items if you guys want to tackle those.
Right. So let's do the update real quick. Entire screen share. So as usual, you can look at our journey. The main things are we created our own test node here, testnot.gno.birdie.io. So we're using that. Other people are free to use it. No promises on when it might get rebooted and wiped and everything. And then we finished our proof of concept, which is a simple app running right now on iOS, soon on Android, which we copied over a bunch of the code that was inside the Gnoki command line, and now it's installing and running on the mobile and interacting with the blockchain. And now we're in the process of adding a nicer user interface to it. And this is all mainly just to get experience so we can formally propose a project in the next phase to develop a formal framework called GNOME Mobile, which will allow anybody to take their app and make it run on mobile. If you want to see a quick demo, not necessarily right now, this is a 2.5-minute demo on Loom, which eventually shows the app running. So I will. Well, you could get it from the journey, but I'll also paste this in our chat also just for fun. And yeah, So we are moving along. We had a meeting with, and our agenda items are related to our meeting we had with Gilliam yesterday. Maybe I should just look at the agenda items. So the main thing is, in order to run Go on mobile, you use Go Mobile, which is a project from Golang. And it had some incompatibilities with trying to build with this and the GNU code in the same time. So Remy and Gilliam did a dig and created this issue and to describe the problem in detail, and this near-term workaround, which is a pull request for just changing some dependencies in Go mod, in the GNU code. So I know there's a lot of pull requests. We wanted to find out on this call whether there's a chance whether this will be merged, or whether we can, of course, for our work, we can just do a replace and point our code to our fix branch. But that is one question we have, is what is the process by which one of these 100 pull requests can get merged? Or not? You know, should we be discouraged from expecting that happening anytime soon, such that we'll just use a replace?
Sorry, come again. Of the 100. Okay, on the PR. So we obviously have some slowness in processing PRs, and we're still trying to work on that. And we have been doing like regular calls every week to try to be more efficient about it. And like this is like a minor PR still, so it should hopefully not take too much time. And I'll sort of, even personally, I can say that when I get to reviewing PRs, which is hopefully either tonight or tomorrow, I'll try to do it first thing first.
Okay, great. And like I said, if it turns out to be something you want to take more time on or test, then we can always do a replace also, but it's here. Thanks. And that's what we wanted to hear. Beautiful. And then the second issue is related, is, I'm trying to, I already lost it. The second issue is we, of course, are writing Go code, which needs to make transactions and needs to interact with the chain. And so instead of just copy pasting a bunch of code, Manfred had started this pull request to create a package called GNU client in the Go code, and with some ideas, you know, package Go client. We talked with Gilliam about the minimal we would need to be able to use this, which is basically, you know, set up a client struct, and then we only need the call method right now. So we don't need all this other stuff. Like this other stuff is fancier, right? You know, can evaluate some GNU code locally and stuff. We don't need that, of course. We just need to call our own function. And so, you know, we really on that call, we spent most of the time talking about the dependency issue, but it would be good to maybe this is something we can just wait again until Jay and Manfred are back on the scene. But in general, we're interested in helping complete this process of exposing an API called GNU client, and the extent to which we can help, right? We've done stuff like this before. So as a minimum, just to try to sketch out the work and decide how much of it we can contribute to as part of our next phase. So that's it.
Okay. So would, just out of curiosity, Jeff, for the issue, or the feature issue 1047, would it make sense to, as like an action, to provide a comment here about what you propose, so that it could get the ball rolling in a request for like comment here?
Yes, absolutely. I would like Guillaume to chime in here, because I think Manfred and he talked about this, and so we want to coordinate. And yeah, absolutely, we can put our ideas into this issue. Do you want to say something, Guillaume?
Yeah, sure. Like I got a quick call with Manfred before he leave in vacation. But actually, it was also for me, for my own onboarding, to work on this project, to discover also the project. I think in any case, we will need to wait for him to continue this at the end, but we can start making some proposal for the client, and also, like Jeff says, a minimal feature. We can start minimal feature like the call method. Yeah, and our proposal on the pull request. Yeah.
All right. That's it. In general, we're moving along. I personally have found it pretty straightforward to work with all this code and to get something up and running. You know, a lot of things worked exactly like I expected the first time, so that's always nice.
Cool, thanks. So I put as an action item then, Wilhelm, you will follow up on the 1047 with your feedback to get some discussion going there. Okay, I think we've covered with everyone on the contributor side of things. No IDE we will save for next time. One of the things that we covered last time, but we put a hold on it because Morgan wasn't here, was around the reflection discussion, and also Pietar's alternative to reflection, introspection, issue 971.
Yes. Can I go afterwards? Just need a second. Sorry.
Yeah. I guess the question is, do we want to? I mean, does it make sense to have like a few minutes, Pietar, where you explain the 971 briefly, and then Morgan gives a quick what he's going to be doing for his issue?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So there was talk about implementing reflection as Go has for GNOME, but kind of a partial implementation. So we're not looking to implement everything that reflection does in Go. Which, if you think about it, reflection has two capabilities. One is the ability to inspect types, and two, to modify them. We do not want people to modify types during runtime, so we're not going to implement that. So what are we left with? We're left with being able to inspect types, which is exactly the same as introspection. The difference between what I'm proposing and the kind of reflection that we were talking until now is at which step of the pipeline it happens. Go does it at runtime. That's why it's called runtime reflection. And introspection is done at compile time, which is the part of the pipeline where the syntax tree is turned into bytecode. And the idea is that you have expressions such as the if statement, switch, and few built-in functions that allow you to change the way your code will look after it's compiled. So you can, based on data of does this type have this function, or does this type have this field, etc. Based on compile time information, you can decide to conditionally compile different source code. In short, this is the proposal.
So I guess, would it make sense then, based on your proposal, that from what Morgan's been talking about with reflection, that he adds to this one and puts his thoughts there instead of having I think the last action was a meta issue on reflection. So adding to that, Morgan, does that make sense? To like debate it on the issue that Peter has now?
I think they are two different proposals,
Okay.
really.
That need to be considered. Okay.
And so, I mean, I was back just last week from holidays, and so I haven't. I mean, it's on my to-do list to try to open up the reflection issue and proper proposal. Because yeah, like trying to spec out a bit better how that would look like. And you know, also in light of the conversation I had with Peter, I think, you know, he is right very much in saying that since we do not want to create types, that a different feature altogether might make sense. To me, of course, there's there's obviously a big con I personally see on introspection is the fact that it creates friction in learning. But then again, we're talking about reflection, which generally tends to be a feature that as a Go developer you learn a lot further down the line when you start working on things like marshallers and you know, generic implementations which need information about the type system. So, you know, I'm a bit ambivalent, and I think we need to have further information about the two. And I will try to have that the issue properly spec'd out by the next dev call. But one other thing I think is that we probably need to have like also a more spec'd out version of the introspection issue. Like I think it would be useful to like see how introspection could possibly be implemented in GNOME, like in terms of actual code examples and reimplementations of things where we currently use reflection, such as JSON marshallers. But yeah, I think, you know, yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I want to add something that is not in the proposal, but I guess it needs to be. The fact that this feature will not only give us the part of reflection that we want, but also it's an alternative to generics. And as far as I know, Jay is not a fan of the Go generics at all. So this feature kind of solves two problems.
Okay, so I added then the reflection meta issue, and maybe to add the alternative to generics to the introspection issue.
Yeah, you can imagine how you can use that instead of generics. You have a function that accepts key, and then when you have a a compile time if statement with, let's say, a built-in function that gives you back type information, and that statement gets evaluated during compilation. And you can say if this type satisfies this interface, then compile this code. If not, then maybe do something else or don't do anything at all. That's how you would use it instead of generics.
Okay. So that we can add that to the issue maybe, and then it's a bit more comprehensive. That sounds good. Peter? Okay, so I guess that, I mean, those are the two follow-ups from last time where we had it, and we can have maybe a longer debate once we have it scoped out into two issues and look at them. I will move on to the open issue discussion that I've pulled from. So again, guys, if you have other topics, but the first one relates to the Meta no CLI issue 1017, and a recent, or like sort of recent, associated issue by Gilhem 1045. And so I was just curious if there were any points or comments here from you, Mark, with regards to the first one around the CLI, and then maybe Gilhem around the add the ability to call exposed structure methods on realm variables.
Okay. In fact, I have nothing new to say right now with regard to what I have already written, and I think to go further on this issue, that would be a matter to me to do some real experiments with a small VM. In fact, part of this issue is to explore. In fact, this is to explore how we can make the experience of GNOME client really GNOME chainless, blockchainless. So really, it's try to present a kind of metaphor which is closer to what people already know for generic systems. Would it be a database system? Would it be a file system? Or would it be a unique system like a shell system running on top of the blockchain, but the blockchain not directly visible? And for example, this is already required by the fact that the smart contracts, the way they are implemented, in fact, a smart contract can already import another smart contract which is provided by another realm. And in fact, so there is already this abstraction, and we don't see, in fact, in the dependency between smart contract, we don't see directly the blockchain, but we see a kind of file systems or a kind of dependency system like Git. So this is to explore this concept, and to go further on that. My idea was to use the experimental VM we are working on, and to also use the part which is already in development. So this is more related to the 1047, the PR 1047 about the GNOME client. In fact, to see the coupling between the GNOME client and the VM, and to see, in fact, how we can present the concept where we need to access some parts of the resources in the blockchain, but through a generic interface much closer to the standard library, or if it's not in the standard library, much closer to what is already known, like databases, file systems, and so on. So this is the generic idea.
Sorry, 1047 or 1017?
The 1047. Okay. Which was discussed before, because it's a well, to me, this is this effort. It's this effort. The 1047. It's really super important, because we try to isolate exactly what is at the end. In the end, to me, we try to isolate exactly what is need to couple the blockchain, and specifically the GNOME the GNU ecosystem to a generic kind of systems, and it affects all the clients, including, in fact, the effort to present a kind of generic interface. But this is still an exploration right now, and what I expect is that probably we will increase the requirements that we want in the Go client, in the GNU client, but we will see in the future what it gives.
Does anyone, are you getting feedback on 1047, Mark? From the team, or do you need feedback, or?
Right now, I don't need any more feedback.
Okay.
I need to progress on my side before giving more feedback.
Okay.
And that's it. Yes.
Okay. So that's an update on that one. Looks like Petar is eager on the yeah, that's what I was gonna say, right? It's 1047, not 1017. Okay. Moving on, the eagerness of Petar on the Rust VM. Shall we move forward with that one? It's on the agenda list. So Petar, I hand it over to you.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so first, this is a different implementation of GNU, written in Rust. The work is still ongoing, so the project is not yet public. When it's roughly usable, it will become public. The motivation was that we think we can do better and provide much more efficient virtual machine than the one we have now. Me and Mark are working on two different VMs, and this is the one that I've been working on for the last 3 weeks or so. The basic constructs for the language are working functions, data structures, assignments. I still need to implement interfaces and a few other things, but
Can you zoom the font a bit?
Sorry?
Can you zoom in a bit?
Let me figure out how.
Control zoom in should also work as a backup. There you go.
Okay. So I'm gonna do a benchmark here of this stupid algorithm. Don't pay attention to the warnings.
They are not important.
Can you see the terminal?
I don't think so, no? Yeah, no.
Yeah,
yeah,
you can.
You see the console down below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the font is still on the small side down there, so, but I don't, maybe it's okay.
It's gonna be slightly slower because I'm streaming right now. Okay, so we have 87 milliseconds for a Fibonacci of 30. This is the entire pipeline, which is parsing the tree, compiling to bytecode, and running it. And we have roughly 87 milliseconds. And if you run the same thing, I didn't cheat. You can see it's the same. I just copy pasted the same code. to the current GNOME implementation, and we can. It's the same pipeline, and if we run this benchmark, we're going to see that we get like it's in nanoseconds, so we need to so it's over 2000 milliseconds and the Rust VM runs it in 87 milliseconds, so that's quite the speed up, I think. And the plan is to have this available as an alternative to the Go version in the next couple of months.
In general, is Go 20 times slower than Rust?
No.
Okay.
I mean, in this case, it depends also because we're very inefficient in instantiating a VM. But yeah, I mean, a few seconds against 86 is a lot.
Yeah. So Rust is not inherently faster than Go. That is kind of a misconception. But what Rust gives you is the ability to write faster code. It's not inherently faster, but it gives you the tools to write faster code. And these tools are you can fold constants. You can do a lot of computation during compile time. So at runtime, you just look up an answer. There are many things that Go doesn't have, because that was the whole point of Go, that it doesn't have many features, right? And the fact that I'm doing few tricks with pointers gives me the ability that the type that represents the native types is actually 8 bytes, and in GNOME I think it's 64. So that is a huge difference as far as cache is concerned. It's not just one thing. There are many things that accumulate, and that's why it's so much faster. The motivation is not only because it's faster, although that's it's very nice, but there are many more tools for creating languages in Rust that we don't have in Go. Like there are very good, amazing garbage collector libraries that actually support. After you integrate them, you can change the garbage collection algorithm without changing your runtime. So you can swap out a tricolor algorithm for generational, and there are many different things you can do. And you have many built-in data structures, like many issues are solved that way. A simple example is we needed a deterministic map that is fairly fast. Well, Rust has a B tree in the standard library, so you don't need to do anything, right? You just implement your native Go type with a B tree map from the Rust standard library, and you're done. That's it. It takes 5 minutes, right? You don't need to do anything fancy. So the decision for this was complicated. It's not simply because it's faster, but you can do much more with, like, I have the entire parser, lexer, scanner, compiler, and VM in 5,000 lines of code, and it supports most of the language. And GNOME VM is, I think, almost 40,000 lines, simply because it doesn't have all these tools available, like the B-tree map and all different data structures that are necessary. So you need to write everything from scratch, which is not optimal.
I think Jeff has a question.
Yep.
Yeah, this certainly sounds cool. The latest video that I saw of Jace talking, he was selling the idea that it's Go from top to bottom. Do you think he'll change his tune, or if it's Go down to the abstract syntax tree for Go, and then it's Rust from there to the bottom?
I think as far as the users are concerned, they don't care whether the VM is implemented in C, in Fortran, in Java, or Go. It doesn't matter. If it's easy to implement, it doesn't matter. If it was hard, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is it working, and is it correct? Well, if the answer to those questions is yes, then I think the users don't care what's underneath. If it's working correctly and it's fast, great. I personally don't think that it matters that absolutely everything is Go from the implementation of the VM. And although I think most of the tools should stay the way they are now, I don't plan of rewriting every tool that exists to Rust. And the plan is to expose an API, so you can call the Rust VM, you can invoke it, just give it some source code, and then get back an answer if you're waiting for an answer. Just invoke it as a single function invocation, and that's it. So keep most of the Rust of the Go ecosystem around the way it is now, and just use Rust for running the code.
Yeah, I wanted to add it on this bit. We from what I know, we're still working on the Rust implementation more as an experiment, and we still the decision of whether it will replace or not the GNOME VM is very much pending. And what is the future of both projects is obviously something which is very much TBD, and something we will decide before mainnet. But I think for me personally, yeah, exactly, yeah, we Rust GNOME RS to me is more should be more an alternative, in the sense that I would really like to see that if we can match the compatibility, you could potentially run a slimmed down version of a GNOME node which uses the GNOME RS as its VM runner, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, of course, it's the idea I believe is not that they're completely replacing the Go version of the GNOME VM.
Yeah, well, it's up to the validator, right? What they run.
Well, could be, but yeah, if they have exactly the same capabilities and features and possibly bugs, then yeah, it's really up to them.
They get paid the same for each bytecode. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm sure you've thought about all these things.
Actually, that's one of the reasons why performance is very important. Is people pay for compute and memory, right? So if your VM is slow, then that means people need to pay more for less compute, right?
Right.
That's the idea.
Okay, thanks.
So if I manage to provide an alternative that gives you all the functionality that GNOME VM gives you, you are highly likely to use it because it will be cheaper.
Absolutely.
So actually, we will so we'll have both the GNOME VM and the Rust VM to test before mainnet to see which one is.
Yes. All the tests for GNOME VM should have exactly the same result on
Rust.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Is there anything? I mean, that was a really cool demo. Thanks, Peter. Like, is there anything else that anyone wants to ask about that topic?
Yes, maybe I can just add. In fact, in part of this effort, there is also a kind of similar effort that I started, in fact, with the same VM definition, but in full Go. And so, in fact, to me, what is important is not only that we have a very fast VM, but that we have a very clean interface, so we can substitute each and every module without disturbing the rest of the architecture. And there, we the debate is more about having a VM which is bytecode defined, whether in Go or Rust or whatever, vs having a VM which is AST defined as it is right now. And this was part of my initial study, was to compare, in fact, the fundamental differences between a VM which is AST based, like it is right now, vs a VM which is bytecode based. And the cost is, if you remain in Go, there is already a 15 times difference in performances between a Go bytecode and Go AST VM. And then if you move from Go to Rust, then you have only a factor of 2 or 3, which is not insignificant, but the Rust VM, the Rust bytecode VM will be twice or maybe at most 3 times faster than the Go VM in bytecode, and between 20 and 30 times faster than the AST VM. And so the debate is really more about having an AST-based VM as it is right now, vs a bytecode VM to me. And this is where we need to be to be very strong in our study and to have very strong arguments. Of course, one part of that is to have the pure compatibility, a full compatibility between the bytecode and the AST, but there are also many other things which come into the picture, and we of course need to be fully to be at least as good as the AST VM, and we need to know if the difference in the behavior of the performance depends from the fact that the VM is based on AST or because just of implementation details. So we need to be sure about of the architecture consequences between looking at making a move or not. But to me, the real debate is more about moving from pure AST VM into a bytecode VM. And for example, all the Ethereum ecosystem is based on bytecode. They have settled this debate. And so far, the AST VM is really what is particular to GNOME. And do we have to stick on it at which level or not? This is what we are working on.
Is there a public repo on your Go VM, Mark?
I don't have a full report. I have to update the documentation, but I will put the numbers and the benchmark and all the things part of the readmes and the code. Very soon.
I mean not the repository, the code. Is it public?
The code is in private. Okay, let me put this is the Parscan, in fact, the Parscan VM. So
okay. Just
But yeah, just wanted to add, like, in any case, here we'd be talking about bytecode for performance and not necessarily to switch from uploading source code to uploading bytecode. Like fundamental idea that the code like that differs, that it is sets apart GNU from Ethereum in many ways, is that still like what you upload to the chain is the source code, not the bytecode.
Yes, and I think we should stick to that. We should stick to Go. So that is for sure. And this is, to me, this is where we need to be very precise. We can stick to Go, and decide to upload the Go code as the main specification of the smart contract, and then having both the Go code and the VM, the bytecode, in fact, instead of having the Go code plus the AST. The thing is, it's easier. In fact, there is a bijection between the AST and the Go code. This is an exact bijection. If you have the AST, you don't need the Go code. You can go. You can reconstruct the exact Go code from the AST, and this is what Go format is doing exactly. But this is not the case if you have a bytecode, because you may have some optimizations and some things that make almost impossible to reconstruct the exact code, the exact source code at the origin of the bytecode. So in case we have the bytecode, we will need to upload all the time the source code. So this is an important difference. And then we need to make sure that the source code corresponds to the exact bytecode. So we need a kind of traceability and security about that. So this is part of the trade-off. But this is the thing that we need to explore as well. Yes.
I'm just curious, of course, if you're doing bytecode, then you're going to do optimization, and you might even optimize away an entire loop such that it would not have the same number of operations that the AST version does. So does it take less gas to execute your optimized code? Or if it's supposed to, I don't know if it's a design criterion that no matter how you execute the Realm function, that it would cost exactly the same amount of gas from everybody?
Yeah, but it depends where the gas is defined. If it's defined at the VM level, then if you have optimized the VM, then you will pay less gas. So if the VM, so to me the gas has to be defined at the VM level. To me, we have not formally specified yet, but this is a given. And in that case, yes, you will pay less. And this is part of the major differences. It's a good point. It's part of the major differences between an AST and based virtual machine and bytecode-based virtual machine. And there are more differences. And for example, one of them that I'm looking at is the fact that you can verify, and then that you can do formal proof that your code is secure. And most of the models, in fact, you have models working at formal verification models working at AST level, but also working at bytecode level. So this is also is it more secure or more easier to verify a bytecode or an AST based model? And this is also a difference. And I tend to think myself that the AST is a bit complex, and having a very simple VM, very restricted VM, is maybe a better way to address this verification problem. But there are many things like that needs to be looked closely. Yes, but the gas and the resources also, yes, it's a good point. But to me, that is to be attached to the VM, if you ask me.
Okay, thanks. I don't have an opinion, just curious. Thanks.
I don't think we should commit to a certain AST producing a certain bytecode, because we would be shooting ourselves in the foot. I think people should not be concerned with what bytecode comes out of that AST. As long as it does the same, well, roughly the same work, we should have freedom to optimize or not.
I just wanted to add a little extra context with the optimization too, that the current working version of the phi equation we have is based at least partly on the number of CPU cycles and the number of bytes stored kind of separately as two different parameters. So yeah, any optimization changes should have a ton of results on any simulations or whenever we eventually launch on the actual gas fees.
All right.
And I just wanted to add that, yes, like personally, I think that like if we are going to have like different implementations of the GNU VM, which should interoperate with each other, then Jeff, like you're right in saying that, yeah, we need to have a formal specification of exactly how CPU cycles are counted, which could possibly even be before optimizations. But yeah, that's you know,
well, you
I
won't
think
know. That's the Turing completeness problem. You can't compute how many operational cycles it'll take as an AST without running it.
Yeah, of course, but you can sort of you can run the program and, you know, sort of specify like at the syntax like running this bit of code, like, and referring to the original code, not at the bytecode, that this takes this amount of gas. That creates complexity, of course. If you want to add optimizations, like an optimization needs to take into consideration, like, okay, I'm swapping this code out for this other, but the amount of gas that I need to calculate is this one. But I think, you know, if multiple VMs is what we're shooting for, then that will definitely be something to be specified.
Interesting. Well, I have 1,000 questions, but I'll wait.
I was going to say, like, does it make sense to have sort of like a VM face-off issue or something where, obviously, I think you guys, the Rust one is still in private, and Mark's is still in private. So is there just like where you could put a meta issue where it's like everyone kind of asks these questions and talks about it in one issue without having to completely open up all of the work you guys are doing?
Yes, probably in the Hackerspace there should be something.
Okay.
Or if there is not, we should put there.
Yeah, just so this that you can, and like also like what Michael was saying, like weighing in. Yeah, me too. I was like, I want a VM face-off, but maybe in like a few weeks we could do like a Petar's VM versus Mark's like kind of competition. I don't know how. Anyway, but yes, I guess
it's not really. It has not to be a competition. It has to be a
race. No,
it's a race. Yes, you can see that like that a race, but it's anyway.
Yeah, no, I just also to make it fun, but yeah, but it, maybe like yeah, okay, we could do that on Hackerspace. That way, like what Michael was saying, also could weigh in on the factors that would impact token economics side of things. Anyway, I don't know if someone could take that and add it to Hackerspace. So we could start there, and maybe Mark and Petar, you guys could just give a brief intro to your like I don't know, benchmark numbers so that people can talk about it. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, and for future plans, like way into the future.
Yeah.
When the Rust VM is more or less done, the next step is to start adding a JIT compiler to it, which will make it the initial benchmark for using EOVM's ORC API was almost the same as native compiled Go performance. Yes, you heard that right. It's almost as if you were writing native Go code.
It's very quiet.
Yes.
I have
But then you know, if you go down that road, it's not the JIT compiler doesn't need to be even in Rust, could be in Go, and the performance would be the same because it's a matter of emitting a native code at the end. So
Yes.
the language is not even is even less important, I would say,
Yes.
the compiler language. But
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that is true. However, it does make a difference. I wanted to try it out in Go, and there is no supported LLVM library in Go. There is no library. Years ago, there was an official Go library in the LLVM repository and got deprecated because no one is using it. So theoretically, you're right, but there's no library. So, and if you want, I dare you to write a library for LLVM. And after a few months, you'll come back aged 25 years.
All right.
25 to say the least. You need to invent time travel just to make that library within a reasonable time frame, if you like.
That is 25, but in hexadecimal.
Yeah, and the advantage there is that because Rust is using LLVM as a compiler backend, so it's it has to be supported. So it's very well supported LLVM library.
Maybe that's also something, a do you dare issue.
Yes.
I think, Ray, you were going to say something.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
I saw Peter mentioned that we don't need to upload the byte code. So you're saying byte code is computed or compiled during the runtime?
Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, you're saying, I saw the chat. You're saying we don't need, I believe somebody asked about execute bytecode on chain and execute AST on chain. And we have a value AST tree is basically verifiable and also readable from the source code that we
Yes.
have on chain. So you're saying we don't need to upload the bytecode. So what does that mean?
That means that we upload the AST and when the contract is invoked, we run the whole pipeline, meaning we parse the AST, generate bytecode, and then run it. This is okay because walking the tree once to generate bytecode is not that expensive, and it's amortized. You do it only once, right?
I see. So basically, you still have AST on chain. Basically, you just during the runtime compile that the bytecode basically exists in the memory.
Yes.
And then you just have your VM run that bytecode you defined it.
Yes, and this way we retain this quality that they were talking about.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, great. Thanks.
Speaking of VMs, Ray, I have here on the agenda quickly a question that is for also Peter and Mark around the VM is not properly released back to sync pool feedback. It's issue 1033, and I think it requires review and comment.
I mean that is just like there's really just a simple PR, isn't it, Ray? Like,
so Michelle, which one?
1033.
33.
So that was the to zero in the ops and value slices.
Yeah. I don't know if that it's just it is valid. I just wanted to see if this is valid. Like common concern because we're not really using entire underlying array of a slice, because the zero in array originally was is in a fixed size array, so that can only zero in the first 1024 elements in a underlying array of a slice. But however, the slice could have much bigger size of array running on the line. So that's where I caught up the issue. And also maybe is why we only zero in the what do you call the let me just look at the value instead of the other, because there's other states or stack maintained by the virtual machine, referenced by the virtual machine, and usually those virtual machine only executed within a context which is within one transaction initiated by a user. So that context is basically just a request, and the entire virtual machine actually exists within the context. So basically, supposedly all those and originally all those the context when the execution finished, and then the context will be gone, and also entire machine actually will be released from the stack. Basically, the machine is a function, a object on the scope of context. If context is gone, then machine is gone. So that's how everything works. But actually, the underlying array, and because of that we use sync pool, which means that I believe this virtual machine has a bunch of thread actually exists outside of the will be reused by different context. So that means if we're not completely erase or reset the slice or array associated with a particular machine, then that machine will bring the reference, the underlying array, to other context. It could cause issue. So that's why I raised that comment.
Yeah. It may just be the case that yeah, I think to fix that is relatively easy, I believe, ish. Well, but yeah, we also need the issue comes, I think, on larger sort of optimization need in the GNOME VM. Like I remember Pat originally added the sync pool to improve because we instantiate the GNOME the GNOME machine a lot, even recursively in execution. So that was a small optimization which at least reduces the amount of memory allocations that we do. Though, I have noticed that we do an incredible amount of allocations, and the performance of GNOME test is an example of that. And also another issue that I want to put, which I want to write, which is in the backlog, and the sync pool comes as part of the great picture in.
I'm not sure if Morgan muted himself or if he was having connection issues.
I muted myself.
Okay. Okay, so shall we? Then, oh, you're back?
Did I cut off?
We can't hear you very well, or at least I can't.
It sounds like you're talking through an old-timey 1920s microphone.
Yes, that's very specific.
my earbuds are still off, is what you're saying. Okay. Thank you, Samsung. I'll be switching to my computer. Oh, not. Hopefully you can hear me a bit better now.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just asking if it was cutting off on what we're saying, because you asked if I muted myself or not.
Yeah, I guess I was curious about what we were concluding on issue 1033.
Oh, to me, it's just we need, like, that word PR, I believe, just to properly zero that in, right, Ray?
Yeah, I was thinking just instead of we manually zero in, we just set no on all those slides, and probably they will automatically be garbage collected by the Go runtime.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, like the reason, like the fact that we have the sync pool though is like precisely because we don't want them to be garbage collected though, because like it comes as a result of the fact that we instantiate like the GNOME machine a lot, and that is a larger issue, of course, which we need to improve, especially because it's like yeah, exactly, reuses all the allocations, but we're saying that there's a lot of memory strain right now on memory allocations and garbage collection, and I plan to do an issue showing that better. But I think like sync pool is something that we need, right? And that's also to keep the two slices. We just need to zero them in properly. That's my take.
I remember somewhere I saw the comment that the reason that this VM got essentially a lot in one, in the benchmark on a local machine, is because I think when we start the when we start the machine that loaded, that's on the first time when we instantiate the virtual machine that need to load a bunch of library. I believe that's when loading library, that's each library, actually I believe that how it's implemented, when we load input a library, each files actually are using using the same method, which seems very similar to add package. So basically that's the reason that it caused a lot of like instance of a virtual machine. So if we only just optimize that particular method when we load libraries, then to separate loading library and also separate the processing the request, so that could be different, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like that's the place where we need to optimize more in general. And the sync pool is just trying to help, because like there's a lot of we create a GNOME machine, we use it for like a few instructions, and then we don't use it anymore. So that's why it makes sense to use the sync pool, I believe.
Yeah, I understand that. So, but if the sync pool, we have to zero in entire array by loop through. I don't know if the other better way to zero in that underlying array of the slice. But if we're only doing that during loading the library, it is probably only executed one time when people restart machine or start machine, I think that should be okay. We can just iterate entire the slice and set it 0, because this is only one-time execution. It shouldn't be a problem. But if this needs to be done for the request, I don't know if that's so that actually the performance saved is actually we need to benchmark instead of it's not that obvious anymore. Yeah.
I mean, I think in general, like we could even skip, I believe, zeroing in the up slice. And the reason for that is that, like we keep track of the number of operations in the queue to a different number. Like I think it's called numops, and as long as that is 0, like the GNOME VM will not read anything. It will read things according to that number. So even zeroing in ups is optional. Values I don't think is optional. Because like it will still hold references. Like values is a slice of typed values, right? I'm not sure.
Yeah, value is a typed value, a field of typed value. That's right.
So like to make it so that the typed values can be garbage collected, it probably makes sense to zero that in. But yeah, then again, like in theory, the number of typed values on the stack should be like very low in most cases, right? It should be within the range of at most, like say 500 values in a single GNOME VM execution, I believe. But yeah, I mean, I think like we need to like, of course, with performance, the question is, have you benchmarked it? Because that's the only true way of knowing. But on a hunch, like it should still be better.
Yeah, I think that's where anyway we can maybe measure that and later on. But I'm just saying, if the purpose of like make sure the garbage collected, because the reason is, let's say you have the value or slice that is 10,000 item in there, and how are we going to zero in that? I think that actually is the key discussion of this particular issue.
I mean, we could make it like we could resize the slice, and the reason to do that is to make it so that like if a transaction required having up to 10,000 values, well then one, it's probably required a lot of gas. But aside from that, it doesn't make sense to leave that in the sync pool with that many amount of values, because no normal execution needs that. So one idea, and I think possibly the approach that we should actually take, is that if the value slice grows beyond 1024 is the default number, I believe. If it grows beyond that, then when we put it back in the pool, we also change its length and its cap, and changing its length and its cap marks the remaining memory like as unused to the GoGC, and can be garbage collected.
Okay, so that's another, but okay, you change the cap. Anyway, we don't have to discuss this in detail. We can talk about later on, because if we change the cap, because I don't know actually if there is a copy underlying if we change the cap.
No, there is not. It's like changing length and cap is changing 2 integers.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I have no more question, and that could be a good solution. Yeah.
Speaking of that, B1T it's issue 1054. It's a request, I guess, RFC request for comment. The moving the NoVM package nolang precompile out of NoVM package nolang.
Yeah, and that's where.
Is it related?
No, that's not related to this.
Okay,
this
sure then.
purely separate. Basically, I noticed a file that was not previously discussed in the GNOME VM. That pre-compile, the idea, the original idea we have for the separate 3 section of the code is Tendermint 2 is a set of libraries that, like 2 sets that people can launch a chain. And the VM library, GNOME VM section of the code directory is more like a generic GNOME language, which can be ported easily to other chains. And then we have a GNOME land section, which is specifically for GNOME land chain that import packages from other section of the repo. So I noticed the precompile actually depend on the GNOME land, which is ideally it should be that way, because when people just fork or a GNOME, they shouldn't rely on any configurations or constant that pointed to a GNOME land. That's the number one, the reason I think that we might consider do something. The second is the precompile. The entire GNOME language does not need to be precompiled to be executed. Okay, so the reason we have in the GNOME Drive tool, which is we do precompile, we do build. Is the reason is that we need to validate 2 things. One is the syntax of the source code. Second is to validate all the imported libraries, so that can be compiled using the Go runtime. And third one is that we can using shin.go to mark the injected native method. Okay, that's implemented in the VM itself. So that's the 3 purpose. That's the 3 things we want to validate off-chain, right, for developers, so after this process, precompile build, so that they know, okay, the code that the GNOME code or whatever the file they wrote, they write is valid. Now can be executed perfectly, no problem on the VM when they upload to the chain. So so this is the precompile, pretty much a tool outside of the GNOME language itself, and so that's why, and that's the second reason that I bring up, that we want to move out of that, at least the language folder, because the GNOME package actually are the virtual machine implementation and the language specs itself. And then from there, that leads to another topic, is we, especially if we're going to launch on mainnet, and the mainnet actually will stay for a while, and then all the repo changes, developers see easily to compile or validate their code against a specific version on chain, right? So that they can use the version of the native method included in the VM on chain, and using the library actually we loaded it up on a specific chain, so that it can validate against that specific setting. So that's where I said the validate is a better term than precompile or build, because those are terms have specific meaning for developers, and the build, especially whatever we build, we're not using it. It's just a binary. Actually, it's not. I don't see any purpose that can serve to be used for the compile the binary, because all we did was just to validate the source code.
Well, I think we are only validating now, but really it could be a much larger tool, right? I don't think like its scope is limited to that. Like it could be, I think it's useful to call it precompile. Like, well, yeah, maybe precompile is wrong because there's no compilation process involved in GNOME, and so you can't precompile it. You could say that you're transpiling it to Go, but I think just saying validate doesn't clearly up to me. It's not intuitive what it's doing. I think.
Do others want to weigh in, or shall we highlight that issue B1T as a request for comment from the team? Okay. Okay, so just quickly moving on then, I think we should table the banker module, Morgan, until Manfred's back, because I think he had some, we actually tabled it last time when you were on vacation, and maybe we should table it while he's on vacation. So that really, that only leaves one more, and I don't, hopefully it's not too long, but I thought we should bring it up. It's related to Guilherme, your ease local dev while keeping no land minimal, 1020. Is this something based on your onboarding, right? It's kind of a good thing maybe to just highlight for everyone.
Yeah, to be honest, I just see the Manfred's command because I was on holiday last week, and I didn't see this command. I need to take care of it and check the other one. But I also need Manfred for this one because there is some point I need to ask you. But totally, I need actually to create some issue on stuff I see on my onboarding. This is the list.
Okay. So I don't know if you guys, I will share it here, but it is a feedback from the onboarding, right, on how to make local dev easier. And then just to wrap it up, since I think Milos is not here, we can table the Node.js client update and Tendermint 2.js client update. There is currently an issue that's outstanding, and it's from an external contributor. It's regarding pagination. I think it's been reviewed by Thomas, Antonio, Milos, Manfred, and I'm just curious, is it possible to move on this? Here's the issue. Issue 8, pull request 883? Or is it just blocked? Anyone?
Author has not replied.
Okay. I know the author. He's actually going to be applying for a grant. So that's the next step then.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just waiting for him to get back on the comments. Yeah.
Okay. And then I don't know if you guys have also seen, it looks like we have a new contributor, Wol Kai Kim. He's worked on a refactor for KV pair and also a cache. I think these are ready for maybe review by Petar and Ray. So it would be really cool to get this new contributor involved.
You say it was an external contributor, not a team member?
No, he's based on his GitHub, he is a Amazon software engineer.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was GitHub stalking him. So yeah, anyway, it would be great if we could work on those. If you guys see them, they're 1057 and 1058. If there's any way to encourage the new contributor. Okay, I think we've made it through most of the items, and then we said we would table the banker one. So is there anything else I have a few actions that I will add to the agenda, but is there anything else anyone wants to add, or?
I do have a question, more general. Our work is to help make it easy for developers to write a user interface for a mobile app. And one of the questions is whether before doing something like posting a message to a message board, whether there is any way to preview how much gas it's going to cost. You know, it might be that you know they're going to post a big story or something, and it's turns out that to store it or something it's going to cost them $2 or something. Is there? I know I've seen some issues talking about how much to charge for storage fees, how much to charge for doing the initial deployment. But I'm just wondering is this such an open question that we can't move forward, or is there some clarity on it that we could bring it into our design for our API for helping developers write UIs? Is there any way to know how much it's going to cost to execute a Realm function call before you do it?
Whenever everything's good to go here, we should at least be able to get pretty good estimates. It kind of depends. We're still finalizing the exact fee equation and building the simulations based off of that. But considering the fact we will be simulating it, there will be a bunch of there will be a framework in place for estimations. It's just a matter of fine-tuning exactly what parameters we're using to determine network congestion and some other kind of fine-tuning tasks like that.
Okay, great.
But yeah, from just adding in, I think from a developer's perspective, I think we could implement that once we have proper tokenomics about fees and everything ironed out. It is something I think it's data we can return if you call QEval. So that's the ABCI call to evaluate something on the chain without actually executing it as a transaction. And I believe that could be a good place to test out the transaction and see how much it would cost.
So part of the storage fee, of course, is updating the storage fee is updating the persisted data, and that is stored as some big compressed blob, I assume. And so if I call a Realm function and it updates a Realm variable, I'm paying for the difference, right, in the new bytes that are going to be stored on the chain as a diff. And is that right? And I guess for that QEval to work, it would have to work with the actual current state of the chain. So it'll have the current state of the Realm. So it'll have access to that and compute the actual diff that will be done to the Realm persistent storage.
Well, that's technically possible. So I don't see reasons why not to.
Yeah.
And I think Michael, I know that there's been tokenomics discussions, and I've been could have been on holiday or public holidays and so on. I haven't been there much, but I recall that originally in one of the long documentation comments that were in the code, another thing that Jay was talking about was the possibility. One thing Jay was talking about was the possibility that it is actually a Realm which pays for the storage costs. Although I don't know if that's an idea we're considering or rolling with. But Michael?
Yeah, I know we have some future ideas where we might even have a subscription method that certain dApps or certain projects are able to use. For example, if there's an on-chain social media, they pay $20 a month, and then they don't have to pay every single time they write a comment or a post. I viewed any discussions in terms of kind of what you're talking about in that general ballpark as something that would likely come post-launch and wouldn't be there at Genesis. But I'm definitely happy to have some meetings beforehand here and maybe even start hashing that out so we do have it ready to go, at least in theory, before we roll that out. So, and then also in terms of getting estimates, I just realized as well, ideally it's going to be a dynamic system where it's constantly like whatever contractor realm is handling the fee equation will receive kind of up to date. This is how much storage we have available, or this is our max resources in comparison to the resources being used. So if it's set up kind of how I'm envisioning implementation at this point, we should be able to pull estimates even without a and it would tell us at this exact point in time, this transaction would cost this amount, even if that transaction isn't processed. So just kind of thinking as a further estimation mechanism, that should probably work too.
So our concern is doing this all on a mobile. So
right.
If I need to have the current blob, which is the Realm's persistent storage, that could be what, tens of megabytes, hundreds terabytes, and if we wanted to eval accurately a transaction before we actually pay for it, would we have to download and store a lot of stuff to do that on a mobile?
I would have to defer to Morgan or whoever would be actually building it up more from the development standpoint. But I think in that case, ideally, we should just be able to send the result of the calculations opposed to doing all the calculations locally or in real time. Maybe VM resources or something else that doesn't necessarily take away from any mobile resources is able to process whatever calculations to determine that fee estimate. And then instead of sending all the values, it just sends basically the final estimate would be kind of what I would hope is the solution to that.
So it's going to spend the CPU cycles to actually run the Realm function, but without...
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It should hopefully not even really take all that many resources. Yeah, that's a good point. We need to think about in terms of, even if it's, hardly any CPU cycles, if it is putting in CPU cycles, that's still kind of not the most efficient thing in the world. The math itself, when calculating just a single instance, should be very, very light computationally. But yeah, I definitely need to dig more into how that implementation is going to hash out, especially for mobile for you guys.
Yeah, and of course, we come from a hardcore peer-to-peer distributed environment and always want to avoid relying on chatting with some central server, even if it's to ask how much the gas fee will be. I'm sure you understand the concern.
Let me add on this. I think the thing is that in what I was saying, which is to call QFL, which could support that functionality, my idea would be, yes, that you submit that as a query to a remote server, which doesn't have to be a central server. Like it could be any GNOME node. But of course, otherwise, the thing you need to do would be to have essentially a GNOME node on the phone, which is possible and doable. It's not very efficient, and it's you're working on phones with limited CPU and everything, and you don't really want to slow them down with running a blockchain node. So yeah, but the way I envision it, the easiest is to ask a remote server how much it would cost. You raise I know you come from Bertie, so hardcore P2P environment, don't trust any server. To me, the second best option to that is that you use the GNOME VM locally and try to execute the function with an empty state. And so yes, what it could cost without having all the block data, the latest block data. Although that is even a worse guess than what the server can do, which instead does have the data.
Well, the worst case is, because every transaction you're given a maximum amount of gas that you're willing to spend. So the worst case is you were wrong in guessing the gas, and the validator just says, well, I'm not going to run your function. Is that right? I mean, is there a price to submitting a transaction which costs more gas than which was rejected by you not supplying enough gas to run the transaction?
Theoretically,
no.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, well, not entirely. It's not like a hard stop necessarily, but it will be determined if we're still going to be using like resources to determine the fee. For example, like if there's enough CPU cycles being used or enough bytes being stored on chain, theoretically, and it would be up to you guys to determine if you want to make this like a hard transaction fail if this condition is met. But there could be conditions where if someone is just blindly guessing how much gas they have to pay, they guess below the actual resource cost of those CPU cycles and that storage, and could therefore, it could be a net negative to the network in that sense. That wouldn't necessarily hard fail the transaction, but in theory it would be less than the equation would want.
I'm gonna imagine you would retain some of the gas, otherwise you'd have a DDoS problem, right? You force nodes to arbitrarily do lots of computation.
And there's like an exponential thing where like after 70% network congestion, however we determine that metric, or 70% of resources used, or however we want to do it, then instead of kind of ramping up more linearly and predictably, it starts ramping up exponentially to deter spam and DDoS and things of that nature.
Okay, well, we have a meeting next week titled Private GNOland Core Team. I don't know who's going to be in that, but I think we should spend the next week and think about this, and then maybe bring up more questions and focus on that, because we're supposed to come up with a detailed technical plan for how to help mobile writers write GNU apps, and these are the things that we're used to worrying about, and so we need to somehow address them in as much detail as possible within the next couple of weeks.
Jeff, could we maybe we have our call on Monday, maybe we could come up with all of the questions in an issue, and then on the call next week, I think with John, could run through them.
Okay.
Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, we'll try to come up with as many questions as we can
maybe
in the next couple of days before Monday.
Yeah, okay. And then Monday we could maybe review them with Guilherme and then see if there's anything else, and then run through them on the next call.
Perfect.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. So unless there's any pending topics, I think we've reached the end of the agenda, and then, like I said, we'll table the other one until Manfred's back. Any last feedback, comments?
I just wanted to plug into something. I sort of did another chunk of final chunk of work on native bindings. So like the ever-present issue to the past. I don't know how many dev calls. Yeah, I'm looking for reviews, and it's a bit technical, but I try to explain as much as possible, like how you can go about reviewing it and aid in understanding it. Yeah, just even if you just want to take a look at the design and validate the design, that would be useful. And then sort of I'm looking forward to merging this within the next couple of weeks, hopefully. And like I say, a couple of weeks mostly because we have about half of the core team on holiday. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe on this one too. For the next like public call, so we say, in 2 weeks, maybe if everyone has feedback, we can then just do one final kind of like feedback loop from Morgan on it. So like in 2 weeks? Okay, cool. Any final thoughts? Okay, well, that's a wrap then on the August 23rd public No-Land Dev Call. Thanks everyone for your time. A vegan wrap.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks guys for your time, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.